Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for the Rainmakers Dilemma webinar. We are joined here with John Sanchez, CPA, President, CEO, and founder of John A. Sanchez and Company, a CPA firm that has structured savings of over $1 million to date for its clients through its small business tax and financial advisory services. As a former controller and CFO, John delivers C-level expertise to small business owners who need a business owner's perspective and not just tax and accounting services. John also serves as an Auburn Hills Chamber of Commerce Board of Director. And with that, John, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Alex. That quick bio, I think, is over a year old. The tax savings to date is well over 2 million now. So, but thank you.
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks for joining us, everybody. This is going to be a good topic. I'm really excited to share with everyone. I think as a fellow business owner, I think this is a topic, the title of which resonates with a lot of us, which is probably what drew you into this. And I know it resonated with me when I looked at this a few months ago and thought this is something worth sharing. So I'm going to kick us off here. We are going to have questions at the end. So as a question pops up in your mind, while I'm chatting, feel free to go ahead and share it in the chat box. We'll circle back. Alex will circle back at the end, and we'll make sure we go through all those questions and do our best to answer them. As part of being a part of the webinar with the Auburn Hills Chamber, at the conclusion, I'll be able to share that free ebook with you, the Rainmakers Dilemma by John Warlow, the author and founder of the Value Builder System, which is what this whole topic is kind of structured around. Companies that are looking to build the value of their business in a greater way than most other businesses will achieve. So the Value Builder System is a coaching program that we work with business owners to help them focus on their business in certain key areas that through the Value Builder System has proven to maximize the value of a business once the owner of the business looks to sell. Most company owners are thinking about selling or increasing the value when they're within 2 or 3 years of selling their business. What we found and what's proven to be superior is working on this day in, day out, well in advance of an exit, a contemplated exit. If we're working on those key areas that drive the value of the business over many years, then we're going to be able to get a better multiple for our business. And, the empirical data shows that, and we'll chat a little bit more about that. So with that, we'll get started here. There's been a movement over the last few years to encourage owners, business owners, entrepreneurs to focus specifically on their specific strengths, what they bring to the table in building their businesses. And these are kind of a collection of some books that speak to that same kind of ethos. Some of you looking at this, you might recognize some of these books. I know I've read a couple of them myself over the years. Strength Finders 2.0, very good book, excellent book. Then the follow-up was one of the others, the Now Discover Your Strengths. Has been a good book, not just for business owners, but even for college students looking to start a career, understanding where their strengths lie and how that would help them figure out a course for their career. And the idea here is, okay, what are your strengths? Understanding what your strengths are and focusing on those strengths primarily to drive your business growth. And they've been successful books, by no means disparaging them. They've been very successful, have resonated with millions of business owners, and the book sales have proven that. Through the books like these, Strength Finders, Discover Your Strengths, entrepreneurs, business owners have been increasingly encouraged to leverage their skills. And that's pretty much the sum total of what these books strive for. So I want you to think about how you contribute to your business. What are your strengths? And be thinking about that as we're continuing to talk about this.
Rainmaker.
So we kind of have this diagram. Where do you contribute the greatest to your company's success? So we got the y-axis and the x-axis here, right? We got the vertical and the horizontal. On the y-axis of this graph, the higher up on the graph, where a task, a skill set that you have that you feel very confident in, you're very strong in. The higher you are, the higher your confidence level in that skill. That's kind of where you track that. And then when you look at the x-axis, that's in employing that skill. What's the length of time where you see quick impact? Now, notice how that x-axis works. The further to the right you go, it goes from years to hours. So the further to the right, it means you get a quicker return on your efforts versus further to the left where it takes longer, maybe weeks, maybe years. So I'm going to pause real quick here, about 5-10 seconds here, so you can kind of digest this. And if you have a piece of paper, pad, you may want to kind of scribble down things that pop up into your mind where your skill sets fall on this diagram. Many business owners start their business understanding where their skill set lies, their strengths lie, and they perform very well at it because these are the tasks that leverage their skill sets and they have the shortest length of time where they see impact, they see results. And for a lot of those strengths where you find out where your pocket, where your wheelhouse is, you find that ROI is really quick. So as we're talking about this, a couple of things that pop into my mind, in this top right quadrant here, where you have very high level of confidence in the skill set and get a quick impact as a result. One area is business development. For many business owners, growing a business, starting a business, the core important thing you need to do is bring business in the door. So your focus in business development, finding quick ROI there. Another area is sales, right? That's kind of hand in hand, isn't it? You're finding the prospects and then you're going through the sales process with them and converting those sales into a customer, into a client. Again, quick ROI brings money in the door, keeps the business growing in that top right quadrant. Another area, customer relations. So you've got the client, you've got the customer, and you're maintaining that customer relationship, making sure the relationship is warm and they are satisfied with the product or service you provide, which leads into the last one, client service, right? So servicing the client, maintaining a warm relationship, these are all areas that many business owners find are a strength and find in that top right-hand quadrant. Well, what do these things have in common? Well, they're Rainmaker activities, are they not? Would you agree with that? Just wave at me if you do. They are certainly Rainmaker qualities. And because of this, we find quick ROI. It's encouraging to the business owner. We're seeing results. Money's coming in the door. The business is growing. And so we keep doing what works. But here's the challenge. Rainmakers typically grow quickly in the beginning, but something happens when that Rainmaker runs out of selling hours in the day, right? There are only so many hours in the day. And for some of you on this webinar, I would even add to that. You may find yourself in a role not just being the Rainmaker, but also being the service deliverer. And that just exacerbates the problem, does it not? Because while there's so many hours in the day to sell, there's certainly so many hours in the day to sell and actually deliver the service. So what winds up happening is you wind up quick uptick in revenue, right? So because you're focusing on that top right quadrant, you're getting quick ROI, but you wind up hitting a ceiling pretty quickly. And as a result, the company revenue flatlines, it plateaus. And this is the period where it becomes very frustrating for most business owners because they're consistently finding themselves in a situation where they're hitting up against their limits, their personal capacity limits, time constraints, so many hours in the day, and you wind up hitting that ceiling. Very frustrating time. And as you hit that plateau, it also exists when we talk about the value of the business, right? Because if we're plateauing our revenue, we're basically plateauing the value of the business. And that becomes the limiting factor, because the business value suffers as a result of that. We can say this with confidence because when we look at the data in the value builder system, we find that we can analyze that owners who are rainmakers compared to other types of business owners. I see at this bottom left-hand screen here, the population here is part of this value builder system, over 23,000 companies that we'd be able to glean some of this information. When you look at rainmakers are almost half as likely to attract an offer. Well, let's look at this. So on the left side of this graph, we've got what percentage of company revenue is undertaken personally by you or your fellow equity holders? Key question there. For those where over 75% of the revenue is dependent on the owner or other owners, you've got 8% are attracting offers here. Go to the far right of this, where basically none of the revenue generating activity is dependent on the owners. You've got 15%. That's almost a 2 times difference. And it's a key question here because on this x-axis, you can see that we have the percentage of the company's revenue that the owner is responsible for. And we can deduct from that 76 to 100% group can be labeled as a rainmaker. The rainmakers receive an offer only 8% of the time compared to 15% of the time for those that their revenue is not dependent on the owners. So they're not dependent on that selling being on that one person. Let's look at a couple other things here. So when we look at the effect that a rainmaker has on the quality and the value of the offers that are coming when they're looking to sell, in general, if you were to receive an offer, what does that look like as far as multiples? And we're familiar with multiples of EBITDA, right? Now, in the selling world, multiples of EBITDA, anything that is greater than 6 times multiples, it's pretty much a premium offer, right? Very few. It's not normal, and usually that could be potentially a strategic purchase. A buyer, it might be a strategic way. You may exceed that, 4 to 6 multiple EBITDA, but anything that's 6 or greater is pretty much a premium offer. And you can see that those that are responsible, looking at this graph here, again, the top here, those that are responsible for over 75% of their company's revenue are getting offers above a multiple of 6, only 15% of the time. Now look at the bottom of this. For that same subgroup that the company's revenue is not dependent on the owners, they're getting multiples of greater than 6, 28% of the time. Again, almost a 2 times difference. Double the time they're getting offers at premium rate. This means that you're almost twice as likely to receive a premium offer for your business if you are not personally involved in generating that company's revenue. Pretty interesting here. Now, there's another type of business owner. Let me introduce you to this different type of business owner. We talked about the rainmaker, right? Well, this owner we're going to call the architect, right? The architect is still good at selling. Architect is still good at customer relations, at service, client services, at selling. They're still good at that. But they invest those skills in building sales and marketing systems, sales and marketing processes, marketing funnels. Instead of just focusing on their strength, that top right corner, right? They know where their strength lies. But having that dependency on them, they're shifting it by developing these marketing funnels, defining their sales product, documenting it, writing it down. It is a manual somewhere, something that is trainable and repeatable. those projects have a longer payback time, right? Looking at this is the same XY axis we started out with, right? High confidence level still. We're still at the high confidence level in our skill set, but that length of time to see an impact is a little longer, is it not? It's quicker to get on that sales call and close the sale, deal with the client, keeping the client relation, but it takes more time and effort to document your processes, to develop marketing funnels, and making it a trainable and repeatable process. That takes more time. And as an architect, you're still putting your times into the skills and the activities that are going to leverage your unique skills. So they're on top of that quadrant. The only difference is that you're moving from the right side of the quadrant to the left side. And instead of personally selling now, what you're doing, you're using what you know about influencing people and selling to train and upskill others to do more of that selling for the company. Again, shifting that dependence from you into a trainable, repeatable process. A major concept we need to understand here, to bring into the fray here, is the idea of moving from the unconscious competence towards conscious competence. What do we mean by that? Well, what we found is when we start the process of documenting this, there's so much of what we do, we think, you know what, most people understand this. Why do I need to teach somebody X, Y, Z? Isn't that common sense? You find it isn't. And that's that unconscious competence. It's those areas of your competency that natural human tendency is to assume and presume that, well, everyone knows how to do this, or everyone knows this. But what you find out when you start documenting this, you start having conversations, you start doing training, you start realizing, you know what, not everybody understands and does this. I think it was the late Peter Drucker, famous management guru. He said, most business owners are looking for someone who's smart, enthusiastic, can close, can sell, can do. They're looking for that person of great competence. But in reality, what Peter Drucker says, what experience has taught him is, as business owners, we're dealing in a sea of incompetence. Now, that sounds insulting, but that's not what he meant. It's just a human reality. So much of what is strong in us, innate in us, we presume everyone else understands and knows. Not necessarily the case. That's that unconscious competence. So how can we create conscious competence? How do we do that? We document our processes. We find ways to train and scale and multiply our competencies into others. The owner needs to figure out what it is they do unconsciously to be so successful doing their Rainmaker activities. And when we identify that and can document it and train, well, that we've transferred from Rainmaker to the architect business owner. So I would encourage you to think about staying in that top of that 4-box quadrant and leveraging your unique skills. But instead of looking just for that instant gratification, making the sale, keeping the customer happy, important, has to be done. But instead of just focusing on doing that yourself, invest those same skills in architecting your company so that that work can be done while you sleep. What happens is here, the first, that first graphic I showed you where the Rainmaker, quick ROI, right? The revenue drop goes up really quick, but then plateaus. The architect is kind of an inverse, right? Your revenue growth isn't going to grow as quickly. But what winds up eventually happening is not only does it catch up to the Rainmaker, it far exceeds what the Rainmaker could ever have done because it's not dependent on the Rainmaker. Effectively transitioning yourself from purely Rainmaker to the architect business owner. So I think what we wind up finding is after an early slump in sales, where you're behind others who are investing in their own personal sales skills, you quickly eclipse those companies because your sales and your company value no longer have a limit. Think about it. If you've documented your processes, you've got it where it's teachable, scalable, repeatable, that's where your company's revenue potential can explode. So as a result, the architect business owner may start more slowly, the growth's more slow, but it avoids that plateau that's plaguing the Rainmaker. Now, if we go back to the slide where we see the likelihood of attracting an offer, an unsolicited offer, this time we're going to group owners based on how well they know their customer. Now, this is a different question. So let's look at this real quick. Architects significantly are more likely to attract an offer. Here's the question. Which of the following best describes your personal relationship with your company's customers? Now, first column here. I know each of my customers / clients by their first name. I know them all by name. Look at that compared to the far right here. I don't know my customers personally. Now that might be a hard pill for some of you to swallow because you take such pride in that customer-client relationship, right? Rightfully so, especially if you're in a service business like as I am. But if we're looking at running our business as an architect rather than a rainmaker, well then those relationships aren't tied in specifically to us, right? And then looking at, again, the same empirical evidence over 23,000 companies within the value builder system, these are the results we're seeing. The business owners that know their customers by first name compared to those that don't, 9% to 14% are attracting an offer. Again, a 50% difference there. Pretty significant. These architects are receiving offers at a rate of 14% of the time. The percentage, the difference between those that have received an offer and those that don't know their customers and the ones that know each of their customers' name, complete different results here. 9%, 14%, 50% difference between those two. So running your business like an architect makes you also more than twice as likely to receive a premium offer. And again, those premium offers we're defining as receiving a multiple greater than 6 times EBITDA. Again, 14% for those that know their customers by name versus those that don't, 33%. That's over 2 times difference. That's pretty, you can't help but pause for those 2,700 or so companies that fit into this category. You can't help but pause. That's pretty impressive difference in results. More than twice as likely to get a premium of 6+ multiple of their pre-tax profit. That should speak for itself. I think we all agree. So that's why I would encourage everyone listening on this webinar, encourage everybody to start thinking of yourself, shifting away from that top right corner rainmaker into the architect, because the results are pretty dramatically different. Now, you might be saying this. I know if you're like me, you're saying, wait a minute, hold on, John. I hear what you're saying and it makes sense, but I like selling. I like knowing my clients by name. I like, keeping the client relationship, customer relationship. I love doing that. And I get it. I understand that. I feel you. I do. But here's how I look at that. We call this the candy box, right? And what I mean by that, we're going to focus on that top right. If you're into healthy living, healthy eating, nutrition, exercise, a little candy once in a while, is that a bad thing? Well, no, it's not. It's not. Helps. If you look at Rainmaker activities as candy box items, doing it once in a while, helping make sure you're keeping your skill sets sharp. That's okay. The problem becomes this: moving away from that as your sole focus, right? Because if you're eating candy 3 times a day, well, obviously that's not going to have a positive consequence on your health. It's going to have a very negative. And so the argument we're making here is, it's okay to do those activities once in a while, but your primary focus should be more into the architect, right? Because that's what's going to drive the greatest value for your business. Candy means it tastes good, it's fun, it keeps the blood flowing, keeps the adrenaline pumping. Business owners feel good with yourself. The dopamine hits are there. But if you do this all day and this is your only focus, you're undermining the value of your company in the long run. You really are. So we want to focus on that top left box. So how do you make that transition? That's the question. How do you make the transition from Rainmaker to the architect? So if we look at the same quadrant, those skill sets that you have less than full confidence in, and I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, any of those skill sets that require, which you would say maybe 5 or below, you would rate on a scale of 1 to 10. Delegate those. Find someone you can delegate that's better at it than you, that's more competent. Just delegate it all. We haven't talked about the bottom left and right much, but if you can identify those individuals in your organization or bring them in, or even outsource it to some degree, delegate those by all means. And then for your architect, that becomes your architect functions. That should be your priority. That should be your focus. That should be your overriding area that you know it's going to drive your business value in the long term. All right. Now, don't be so tempted for that quick revenue bump. But for most business owners that have already hit that plateau, they kind of already feel the pain of, I'm hitting a wall. The only way to get past it is to shift from Rainmaker to architect. That should be your focus. That should be your priority. And on the Rainmaker side, that top right, train, document, develop the process, document the process, make it teachable, trainable, and invest those Rainmaker skill sets you have into others in your organization. This should be the priority of your grid here. Now, I'd like to share, as we move towards wrapping up, keeping mindful of time here. I want to keep some time for some questions. I want to share some maybe quick 9 strategies. Maybe it could help you as you're thinking through, okay, John, how do all right, I get it, John. Rainmaker, it's a good thing, but can't be a place I need to stay in if I want to grow the value of my business. Well, here's some strategies maybe we can give you some ideas here to give you a roadmap, so to speak. And how do I get from here to there? First idea here, designing marketing funnels that work while you're sleeping, while you're not working. Making automated processes to help fill your pipeline with new customers, new clients that you can put your team in front of to grow, test your documented sales and processes to grow revenue. And that's again, the architect, it's going to take longer, right? You're not going to get the quick revenue bump, but eventually as you start gaining traction, getting a little more competent, you're not only going to reach the Rainmaker's revenue threshold, you're going to far exceed it. And that's the point you need to keep in mind during this time of the hard work, right? Because it is hard work. But designing marketing funnels that are going to work, they're automated in a way so it's not fully dependent on what I call human effort. This is the first strategy that should be done by the owner, because the owner really understands their customer. They really understand what will get them to engage with their company, right? You really understand what's causing you to close those deals when you were playing the Rainmaker, right? What made you successful at that? What did you know will resonate with your customer? What resonated with your clients to get them to understand what it is you brought to the table that closed the deal? You understand that. So you need to set this up to be a hands-off activity so that you gain your time back to focus on growing the business of the company. The other strategy here is documenting the sales process, documentation. I often bring this up with talking to my clients, about documenting processes. We do this internally as a firm as well. All the work we do for our business clients, it's all documented, paper. Why? I learned long ago, years ago, having staff, people retire, people leave. The only person that's going to be here forever is you, the owner, me. My name's on the door. I'm the only one who's going to be here forever, or as long as God will have me here, right? But if all the work being done for your customers, your client, are dependent on a person, that's a problem. That's a problem. Many of you know that. Experience has taught me as well. So a few years back, we started a process, and I'll be honest, it's painful. It takes months, it took us years to really document everything we're doing for our clients on a regular basis. And we're not where I would want us to be, but we are light years from where we were. And there's a confidence today that wasn't there 5 years ago, where if someone were to leave, I can plug somebody in and the learning curve would be much shorter than if that person or that process was not documented. It is hard work, but when you document that process, that helps drive the value of the business. I can tell you from talking to clients that have sold their business recently that had documented processes, much higher EBITDA multiples, much higher. Why? Because acquirers don't want to buy a company that they have to then learn, okay, how do we maintain the revenue? You're not going to get a premium offer if there's still a lot of learning curve that needs to happen, because it's dependent on whether it's you or a particular staff person. Document the process. Anything that's documentable, trainable, scalable, by far will attract a higher multiple offer. So document those sales processes. Third strategy here, hiring the salespeople that are used to selling products. Now, some of you on this webinar, you may run a company that sells products. Some of you may run a company like myself. I know James also. We sell a service. But why do we want to hire? Why would we want to have a salesperson that is only used to selling products? Well, here's the theory there. So those salespeople that have experience selling services, where a lot of their background in selling is in the service sector, they have the luxury or have become into the habit of being able to tailor their offering to a specific customer. We want to avoid that. We want to avoid that. We want at a minimum, want to be thinking about the difference between a salesperson who's used to selling a service versus one who sells a product, so that the customer can see the benefit of the product. Because if we're customizing our service offerings for every customer, every client prospect we're talking to, well, that's not very scalable, is it? But the more we can make our service a product, a standardized product, well, that's more scalable. That can be trained. That can be duplicated, right? That's why we want to look at salespeople that are used to selling products. Another strategy kind of ties into our last point, right? Limit complexity. Going back to the salesperson that sells a product, right? If they're selling a service, if they're customizing everything for each customer, well, that's nothing but complexity. The more we can standardize what we're selling, productizing it, the more we standardize it, the more that salesperson could sell better, right? Not having to customize every conversation to the customer. So in order to train less experienced people in the sales process, we need to simplify the complexity of the sale. That's why we want to limit the complexity. Another way we do this is by limiting the complexity and having fewer product offerings. Again, this point number 5 here kind of ties into the last two. Moving away from that customization for each customer, each client we're looking at. Productizing, standardizing, very little customization, that is scalable. Again, helps move away from that Rainmaker to that architect. Many of you recall Henry Ford's famous saying, right? You can have the Model T in any color you want, as long as it's black, right? It's the same idea there. Henry Ford understood this many moons ago. Avoid customizing, it's scalable. That'll drive revenue, that'll drive profits, that'll drive the value of your business. Strategy number 6 here, set your salespeople up as experts. Really, how you position your salesperson is going to help as they're talking to your prospects, talking to your customers, talking to your clients. Positioning them as an expert, a thought leader, someone who is a guru in what they do. One little way we do here in the firm is any new client we're meeting with, some of you understand we use QuickBooks Online. We have a staff person that does a lot of that training. I refer to her as our QBO ninja. She's our QBO ninja. I introduce her that way to every new client. Again, it's setting her up to be the expert in the eyes of your customer. I have all full confidence in her. She certainly is a QBO ninja. I'm very, very familiar with QBO. I'm very good at it, but she's much better at it than me because she's in it every day. She sees the problems. She knows the workarounds. She knows the product so well. She can train very well at it with her clients. So she's our QBO ninja. So set up your people as experts, as gurus at what they do. It helps elevate them in the eyes of your clients and your customers. So as Rainmakers, right? Never attend the customer meeting alone. When I read this, in my mind, I think of the movie, the Tom Cruise movie. He calls himself the master of the living room, right? He's able to close a deal. That was his thing. So never attend. If you're looking to scale the sales process, the architect. If you're training others, you'll never be able to train them if you're attending sales meetings alone, right? So you're documenting the process, but then there's that training. There's that, how do you train someone to interact with a prospect, with the customer? So much of that is kind of organic, is it not? Right? Understanding how to pivot in a conversation, understanding how to address customers, clients' concerns. Well, you can document some of that. Some of that is kind of just learned on-the-job behavior. And the only way you're going to effectively do that is bringing your team with you to those customer meetings, all right? Client relationships, making sure people are learning from, not just from reading, but we learn better as human beings as we follow a model, right? What would John do? What would James do? What would Bob do, right? What would Linda do? Right? That's what your team should be thinking as they're attending these meetings with you, right? That transfer of knowledge goes far beyond just reading it on a documented paper process. Seeing you in action, people are going to learn so much. Never attend the customer meeting alone. Number 8, create customer testimonies. Social proof is powerful. You know that. This isn't anything any of us don't know, but it bears repeating here. As a firm, every proposal we give a client, we give a bunch of our customer reviews. The social proof is there. We have happy clients. We're proud of it. We work hard to keep them happy, and we want to showcase that as best as we can. And what does that really do? In a way, that helps your sales team, does it not? As you're bringing salespeople, it makes their heavy lifting a little lighter, having all these working to your favor. Social proof and understanding how to handle a sales meeting. And then lastly, in this 9-point suggestion on helping you transition from Rainmaker to architect, maybe there's some offer of guarantees you can give to your customers. Again, this again helps your sales team in that whole sales process, offering the social proof, offering a guarantee, a satisfaction guarantee in some way, shape, or form, whatever that makes sense and what it looks like for your business and what it is that you sell. This might seem like a question you need to ask your sales team. What kind of guarantee can we offer that would really go long in a sales meeting? And that's a conversation that's worth having. So these are the 9 strategies to think about. Consider when you're thinking about transitioning from Rainmaker to architect in your business. Design those marketing funnels that work while you sleeping, documenting your sales process. Put it on paper. You'll be surprised what you learn when you write down what it is that you do. It might make you think through a couple of things and maybe refine it as well when you're thinking through, okay, I'm going to teach somebody this. I'm going to replicate my expertise, my ability into others. You learn a lot when you go into that process. Again, speaking from experience. Hire salespeople that sell products. This is more importantly, especially for those of you that sell a service, productizing your service. Limit that complexity, right? Avoid customizing, setting up your salespeople as experts, as gurus in the eyes of your prospects, your customers. And again, never attend a customer client meeting alone. Avoid it if you can at all costs. So much of the expertise you have within you, innate in you, is going to be transferred by others watching and seeing and learning from you. Creating those customer testimonies, social proof, very important, and again, offering guarantees. So these are the 9 steps, 9 suggestions, 9 strategies, as we're thinking of going from Rainmaker to Architect that might help you in that journey. Now, having shared all that, before we get into our Q&A here, when we first opened up here, you know, I mentioned this value builder system coaching program we offer. And this starts off with, we offer a questionnaire, which, by the way, we're offering to everyone on this webinar today. If you're interested, let me know in the chat box at the close of the webinar. I'll send you an invite to the questionnaire to help determine where your company stands. What is your value builder score? This is a score that, based on the questionnaire answers you provide, gives you an idea of where your company stands as far as gaining highest value from the perspective of the value builder system. Free, no charge. I will send that out to anyone interested. Feel free at your leisure to do the questionnaire. Once the questionnaire is completed, I'm notified, and then we'll set up a quick 15-minute meeting to go over the results. All right, and then we can talk about what that looks like and what that means for you as a business owner looking to maximize the value of your business at some contemplated exit date, whether that's 2, 3, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, whatever that looks like. And that's the Rainmaker dilemma. Thanks for listening. I think a lot here to absorb. I think a lot of good points here. I think it's resonated with a lot of you listening. Alex, do we have any questions to go over?
We do. Thank you, John. So the first question came through right before you went into your strategy. So I think you covered everything, but they said, did you have any keys or tips or best practices for moving from Rainmaker mentality to Architect mentality? I think that kind of covers your strategies that you covered. But if you had anything else you wanted to add. Yeah,
I think those are good strategies. Again, this is, I say this at the risk of sounding self-serving here. But again, the value builder system, which we started, and you know, I got involved in this when I evaluated the value builder system. Probably I would say it was close to 2 years ago, and I loved the John Warlow, who's the founder and owner of the Value Builder. He's written 3 books, Built to Sell, a couple other books whose titles are escaping my mind right now, but. He's started and built and sold a couple of companies. He has a podcast, which I would encourage, if you're into podcasts, find Built to Sell by John Warlow. I subscribe to it. Fantastic podcast. He interviews business owners every month that have sold companies, built companies, sold companies, and talks about what they learned in their sales process. Fantastic podcast. It's on my list every month to listen to. And really, from the value builder system perspective, the system is set up identifying 8 key areas in a business that need to be focused on and improved to help drive that value of the business. So in addition to those 9 strategies, transitioning from Rainmaker to Architect, fantastic. I mean, if you do nothing but focus on those 9 strategies, you're doing your good business a valuable service. But if you want to take it to the next step, really focus on those 8 areas. You know, the value builder system is a fantastic system to consider.
Awesome, great. We had one other question come through from Linda Kleiss. She asked, I know of small business owners who have delegated selling to an employee. They pay them while their new salesperson is building relationships and networking. Then after a relatively short time and without bringing in any significant sales, they quit. One owner told me she's back in the sales seat and won't give it up. I recognize this is not the solution. When training an employee in new business development or sales, how do you keep them?
Good question. That is the magic answer, especially in this labor market we're dealing with, right? Keeping your team properly motivated. You know, it's interesting. I would ask that business owner, what caused that person to leave? If they were doing so well, was there a compensation issue? Were they not properly incentivized? Obviously, people leave for various reasons, but if it was a question, that's the first question comes up in my mind. What was the incentives that would keep them motivated and excited to continue working where they're at, to continue being successful the way they were? I get the natural temptation going through something like that is to just revert back to Rainmaker mentality and stay there. I was like, I'll never do that again. That does not serve the business well in the long term. But I get the temptation to do that. This work is hard. It's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart by any means. But nothing that's important and worthwhile is easy, right? So it takes hard work and dedication and commitment to the task. So, yep, very, very, very good example.
All right. Well, we thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you again, John, for being with us and providing some great insight on the Rainmaker's dilemma.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone.